Welcome to the Rewilded Human Podcast, where Dr. Lucille, holistic psychiatrist and psychotherapist, and Dr. Lynn, naturopath and nutritional consultant, help you reconnect with your true self. Through practical tips on mental health, nutrition, exercise, relationships, and spirituality, with a dash of humor, they tackle today's toughest issues to guide you back to a harmonious, vibrant life. Rediscover your natural self, just as nature intended.
So maybe you're getting concerned about your eyes. As we get older, we are taught that there are certain things that are just going to happen as we age, like cataracts, or our myopia may get worse, or our farsightedness may get stronger, or macular degeneration will happen, and on the list goes, right? But in today's episode, we're going to definitely blow the myth out of the water about all of these diseases or these imbalances of the eyes, because we have an interview with very advanced eye care specialist by the name of Dr. Valerie Giangrande, who's also a quantum biology specialist. And quantum biology, to put it very simply, is that field of science that accounts for how we can optimize our health just by interacting appropriately with the frequencies and energies of the natural world around us. So far from our eyes being damaged by the sun, which we've all been taught the sun is dangerous and it creates all these eye care issues as we get older, Dr. Giangrande will explain to us how appropriate sun exposure is actually very healing and balancing, not only for the eyes, but for the entire body. So she's going to talk about the various very common eye conditions that we can run into. And she also talks about the artificial light that we're all exposed to when we're indoors and how damaging that actually is to our eyes and to our health. So sit back, enjoy, and learn a whole new way of how to take care of your eyes.
Dr. Valerie, we are so happy to have you with us. And we are so anxious to pick your brain all about eye health, quantum health, how it all relates, why it's all important. And I mean, our eyesight is everything. So where do we start? Let's jump in.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Valerie, what does the average person not know about eye health that is totally fundamental?
So the amount of light, every single light that gets into our eyes controls the entire body. And that's such a big statement to make. And everyone thinks about vision, but there's so much more to the eyes than vision. It literally controls the health of the entire body. And we've been conditioned to fear the sun. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about eye health that I'd like to just educate about, because it is so important for the entire body. And again, when I learned this years ago, I couldn't believe all this information and how it changed my entire life. And I just needed to share it. So yes, I've been educating people about this ever since.
Oh, that's wonderful. So let's start there. Let's start with the sun, because everyone's got the sunglasses on. We need to block out the sun. They're blocking out the sun in the UK now officially, right? So what happens to our eyes when we are never exposed to the sun?
So the sunlight tells our body what time it is. So sunlight, I'll just give a general overview first. It's full spectrum. Like the sun has everything, not just the rainbow that we think about, not just the Roy G. Biv. It's got a lot of wavelengths that we don't see, specifically infrared light, ultraviolet light, but our body sees it, and our eyes have receptors for those light waves, and they do stuff to our biology. But at a very simple level, just blue light in general, a specific blue light is enough to trigger these blue light receptors in our eyes. And that's what tells our brain what time it is. We have a clock in our brain. It's wired for blue light. Once that clock gets that signal from blue light from the sun, it turns on every single cell in our body. Now, every cell has clock genes that need to know what to do. We have to know what time it is. And we get that from light, from blue light. And the sun gives us that light in perfect doses. That's very balanced. So when the sun is rising, we get a little bit of that blue. It turns on through our eyes, through those blue light receptors, through naked eyes. We have to have naked eyes for that to happen. Yeah. And then the clock gets started. So then we start releasing cortisol. We start releasing all of the things. Our digestion turns on, our hormones turn on, we have energy. We're doing all the things we're supposed to do. And then as the sun continues to rise, all the different signals show up. So we have, there's always red and infrared light, which are very important, long wavelengths, which again, we need to absorb through our eyes. We have blue light that keeps changing throughout the day and keeps resetting our body. We have ultraviolet light signals that also do different things for our biology. And when it's balanced in certain fashion and we're doing it in a safe way, we're actually modifying hormones, neurotransmitters, our mood, our metabolism. I mean, our sleep patterns, everything. So if we are blocking the sun, especially with sunglasses, our brain just has no idea what time it is. I mean, it's so interesting that our brain thinks it's nighttime. If we're putting on sunglasses and we go outside, all of that visible light is reduced. We're not getting any ultraviolet. Our brain thinks it's nighttime, which confuses everything. Our pupils get more dilated. We're getting these unbalanced signals, and our clock is off. We have no idea what time it is. And then if we're consistently blocking that ultraviolet light, then we're going to mess with our hormones, our neurotransmitters. We can burn more easily if we're in the sun, especially with the whole vitamin D thing. So there's so many aspects to sunlight that we need. And I'm not suggesting that we stare at the sun or that we do things that are, unsafe, because there are times when we really do need to protect our eyes. But I think the message of always blocking the sun with sunglasses is a very dangerous one, because
Mhm.
we need those signals for everything.
And you know what I'm seeing now is people are putting sunglasses on babies, on our
Mhm.
tiny children, on
Oh.
babies. Like, I'm like, I just
Mm.
want to go there and rip it off. I'm like,
No,
what are you
honestly,
doing?
I did the same thing. I didn't know. I have pictures of my poor children on the beach in those long rash
Yeah,
guards, a hat, sunglasses, sunblock. Because we were taught that babies can't handle sunlight.
yeah.
They were it's so dangerous for them. And oh my gosh, the things I wish I knew when they were
I know.
smaller. I feel so
I know.
bad.
What happens to the babies if they're covered up like this and they don't get the proper sun exposure?
We all need, as humans, we need light, just like plants need light, just like animals need light. Again, we want to be careful, but at different times of day, we have the capacity to handle sunlight if we do it well enough. I mean, I'll go in the shade, I wear hats. It's not like I'm exposed to these strong signals of sun for, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I do like being in the shade, and the shade has a lot of benefits as well, but I'm not wearing sunglasses when I'm in the shade. I'm not wearing sunglasses all the time because you're still getting full benefits, even when you're in the shade, and even when you have a hat on, you're still getting the eyes still know what time it is. And I
Yes.
think that's important as well.
What are you said there are a couple of there are some certain situations when you would want to protect your eyes from the sun. And I believe those are like glares and, like
Mhm.
water or skiing
Yeah.
or some situations like that.
Right. So there are some surfaces that are reflecting the sun in such a way that it's no longer balanced sunlight, it's reflected glare. And it's actually giving you much higher levels of ultraviolet light and high energy blue light. The snow, if we're skiing, I mean, snow will reflect, I want to say it's almost up to 80% of the light. And you're
Wow.
getting this extreme ultraviolet signal that's unbalanced, and you can burn your eyes. So it's very dangerous. Things like white snow, not white snow, white sand. There are times of the day when the reflections can be very intense as well. And people who spend, say, all day on a boat fishing, sometimes those reflections can also be very damaging. Anything that's reflecting is reflecting light in an unbalanced way and giving us more ultraviolet, more high energy visible light. If we're driving and there's glare off of other objects, that glare can be visually debilitating. We want to be careful when we're driving. So those are another other examples. And, we also have to be careful. Everybody's different in how much sunlight we can be exposed to. I mean, the best way to do it would be to build up slowly with the earlier levels of sun when sun isn't that strong and we're getting those red and infrared light signals. And then we can build up better and handle those signals. But not everybody has done that. Some people are inside all day and then they go outside. So we do have to be careful depending on what kind of lifestyle we have. Everybody's different. So there are other times when also sunglasses are needed, but those are the main times I would say reflected glare. I've gotten to a point where I don't really need them. I don't feel the need. I don't even if I'm on the beach. Like I said, I wear a hat. I'll go under an umbrella if I feel it. But I was in Mexico a couple of months ago, and I didn't have sunglasses with me. I just
Mhm.
had my hat, and I was on the beach at one particular part of the day, or a couple of times a day, where that white sand was so blinding to me,
Yeah.
and I couldn't keep my eyes open. It physically hurt. And
Yeah.
in that moment, I said, "Holy cow, this is not good for me." Like I knew it wasn't good, and
Mm.
I wish I
Yeah.
had sunglasses. Or
Yeah.
there are
Mhm.
some sunglasses that do allow that also, because the problem with sunglasses sometimes is that if they're only blocking ultraviolet, then you're getting more of the high energy visible blue or the
Yeah.
visible light, which is very
Mhm.
damaging. So you want to, so there are some sunglasses that block both the blue and the UV, and some glasses don't block 100%, so but I wish I had something, and I was frightened. I had to leave the beach. It was I could
Oh,
not keep my eyes open. The hat didn't help. So that's what made me think, I have to be really careful. I want people to know that there really are times when we have to protect our eyes. But
Yeah.
there are also ways that we can build up a tolerance where people who are very light sensitive can handle more, more sunshine as well
mhm.
over
Well,
time.
you were light sensitive, as I recall, in some of your
Yeah,
podcasts I've listened to.
absolutely.
You had very sensitive eyes,
Mhm.
and a lot of people who have that condition feel they should never go out in the sun without
Exactly.
sunglasses. So, how did you get over it?
So, yeah, absolutely. I wore sunglasses on cloudy days, rainy days. It didn't matter. I always wore them. I started with sunrise. When you start with sunrise, there's no UV in that morning sun around, and if there is, it's not going to harm us. So usually, ultraviolet light in a very low level will show up about an hour after sunrise, because when the sun is rising above the horizon, it's only letting through the longer wavelengths. And red and infrared light are the most healing wavelengths that we can handle. Because there's no UV, we actually need those signals to help our mitochondria in the eyes, help our energy cells, help bathe the cells. They help us make more water inside of our body. It's just a really nice time. So if we can handle the sunrise, that's what I would do. I would go outside for sunrise and just face the sun. You're not staring at the sun. I mean, unless it's coming up over the horizon, that's a beautiful time, but I don't necessarily see the sun over the horizon. But just getting outside for a few minutes and then slowly building up from there, it just is amazing how quickly it happens. And then I would go out at UVA rise, which is about an hour after sunrise, and just go for a walk. Just go for a walk. If I did wear sunglasses, I would just pull them down periodically. And then over time, it just builds up that way. And sunset is another great time to really get used to that. And I was very careful about blocking all of that blue light at night, especially with the glasses that you're wearing as well, Dr. Lucille. So those glasses will help, reduce all of the harmful light at night. And it just helps your body. Basically, we're so blue light toxic. We have so much unbalanced high energy blue light by being indoors all day that our bodies are cooked and we can no longer handle sunlight, which is why people are so light sensitive. So by blocking the high energy blue or that visible light, being really careful about screens, wearing those orange glasses, starting with sunrise and sunset, then over time it just becomes really easy to start
Mhm.
building up that tolerance. It's amazing how it happens.
Yeah, that's a very common thing that I hear from people. I just can't handle the sun, and I see that they are literally hurting when they go outside. The sun is like really bothering them, but that's really a great way to expose them slowly. And probably once they start blocking the blue light indoors, because the light is just so different, then you just become, used to the indoor light, and then the outdoor light just feels completely unnatural to your eyes.
Right. So that unbalanced blue light that we're exposed to indoors is a stressor for the body. It's very
Hmm.
oxidizing, it's damaging our eyes, it's dehydrating our body, dehydrating the cells in our eyes. But because it causes a little bit of stress, it can actually make our pupils a little more dilated. Our pupil response is based on if we're stressed, it stays more dilated. So when we go outside, now the eyes are too open and we are going to be more light sensitive because again, we've been cooked by that blue light. So it does take a little time for the body to be rewired a little bit. When we stop the blue light toxicity, we get more of the healthy light, and it all falls into place.
So, how regenerative is our brain and our eyes? Like, if somebody didn't know any of this and came to it in their 70s and then decided, now I'm going to do something about it. Now I'm going to really expose myself to all the healthy wavelengths of light. Can that late in the day of one's life, can that actually reverse all the damage that has been done over the decades?
I guess it depends on how much damage we're talking about.
Mm.
So people who have, say, and there may be some people who disagree. I think there are some stories where people have reversed many, many things. But say somebody has, macular degeneration to the point where they've already have scar tissue, they already had injections, they already did all the things. Can we reverse that once there's scar tissue? I haven't seen a reversal, although I will say that I have seen people repair and feel better with a little bit of improvement, not reversal.
Mhm.
Cataracts at a lower stage can, there's many, many people who have gotten better. There's definitely ways, and it's never too late to get sunlight. It really isn't. Drusen, when we have those fatty deposits in the retina, that's just years and years of again, the wrong lighting, inflammation, and it's the surface of the retinal pigment epithelial layer, the layer that has all the pigment underneath the retina that does all of the work, gets overwhelmed by stress, by light, by all of those things. And then it's not able to replenish or regenerate those photoreceptors. So you get these fatty deposits. But there are some people who have improved those fatty deposits once the retina gets its health back. I'm not trying, I don't want to make a claim that we can reverse things completely. But like I
Yes.
said, it's never too late to give our body the right signals. I think it's always going to be beneficial at any age.
So
It's better
speaking,
to prevent, though, I would say. Obviously, much easier to prevent things than to.
yeah, that goes for
Absolutely.
everything.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dr. Valley, what about cataracts? Because obviously everybody knows that cataracts are caused by the sun, right?
Right. Yeah. So cataracts, it's interesting. Now they're starting to see that high energy visible light or blue light is actually causing cataracts as well. So yes, cataracts, there's a high prevalence of cataracts in places where there's high sun exposure, but there's also a high prevalence of cataracts in people who never see the sun. I see it all the time in people who are sitting on their screens all day long, really intense cataracts. I say, what do you do? Are you outside a lot? Nope. I wear my sunglasses all the time. I'm just on my computer. And they get really intense cataracts just as much. So is it really sunlight or are there other aspects? There's so many aspects to cataracts. There's oxidative stress. Diabetics will get faster cataracts. Smokers will get faster cataracts. There's a lot of different other other causes, which also can have to do with circadian rhythm, because diabetes is very circadian linked and all of those things. But from a light standpoint, the high energy visible blue is going to penetrate our eyes a lot more than ultraviolet, although the lens is absorbing ultraviolet light as well. But if we have a nice healthy circadian lifestyle and we're getting that balanced light and we're getting the red and infrared light the way we're supposed to, there's mitochondrial cells on the front surface of the lens. The epithelial layer does have mitochondrial cells, and if we're keeping them healthy, we have a better chance of the lens not getting oxidized. Now, the lens is interesting because the proteins that are made never they don't necessarily regenerate. They don't regenerate. They keep growing, and they're there for life. So the lens keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker every year of life. So those proteins are just sitting there. Those crystalline proteins are very prone to being oxidized. So that's why we used to consider it more of an aging disease, because over time, there's only so much that the eyes, over time they get oxidized and they turn yellow and then they get cloudy. It's happening earlier. It is. And what's
Yeah,
changing? People are wearing sunglasses more and they're on their screens more. So it's not all sunlight. It's not all sunlight.
yeah.
Mhm.
Are you seeing a lot more kids and young people now who are needing glasses, who are having vision problems?
Well, myopia is out of control with in a day when I see patients, every now and then I'll get maybe one child, one or two. Not even every day, very rarely, who doesn't need anything. And I get so excited for them. I'm like, what are you doing? Got to continue doing whatever you're doing. Make sure you don't need it's rare. It's so rare. And I guess it's rare because the people coming in are coming in because they're not seeing well. Everyone should get their eyes checked, but most people will just come in when they have symptoms. But it is so rare to see children who don't need anything. My kids don't need anything, thank goodness. But yes, myopia is becoming rampant, and there's a couple of reasons, and one of the biggest reasons is lack of sunshine. And even in the conventional world, we know that that's an issue because we need full spectrum sunlight to help lower the incidence of myopia. While there is a genetic component to it, the environment plays a role as well. When we get that full spectrum sunlight, and that includes ultraviolet light, even though everyone's afraid of it, we make dopamine in our eyes when we get exposed to ultraviolet, specifically that UVA exposure. And dopamine is going to hold on to those skeletal muscles in the eye, and it's going to prevent the eye from growing and growing. And that's how we become more nearsighted. And there's also studies about violet light that the high violet light can actually turn off some of those genes that turn on myopia as well. And then the other aspect of myopia is the fact that we are on screens all the time. So blue light obviously can mess with our dopamine, but it also the focusing that we're doing when we stare at something so close for so many hours at a time, it's too much. And the eyes have to focus so hard that the brain says, I don't feel like focusing. Let's just become more nearsighted by growing. Because when we're nearsighted, it's an adaptation. We don't necessarily need to focus to read. When we're nearsighted and we wear glasses for distance, taking
Yeah.
off those glasses, you can see really well up close.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the way the body adapts to focusing, which is why so many people are nearsighted. But the problem is people will get glasses for distance and then wear them for reading. And the
Yeah.
body has to focus all over again through those glasses. And the brain says, well, I don't feel like focusing. Let's just get worse. And then they go in and they need stronger glasses, and that cycle continues. So usually for what we do, and I'm hoping, I assume a lot of optometrists are doing this all over the country, but it's myopia control. We try to put glasses that have less of a prescription for reading, or tell people to take them off when they read, just to try to prevent the focusing aspect of myopia. But the sunlight aspect is huge.
And so, what are some of the other most common things that you see in your practice?
So we have dry eyes. I would say dry
Mhm,
eyes,
mhm,
Welcome to
allergies.
menopause.
Yes.
mhm,
Oh, right. That's a net right. Estrogen is very protective against dry eyes, so that's an issue as well. Certainly hormonal, but dry eyes, but even in young kids, dry eyes,
Oh,
allergies. Glaucoma is another thing that I happen to see a lot, just based on the practice that I'm in. We have a very high population of glaucoma patients, so that's something that I happen to see a lot. I don't know that that's such a common thing to see, but it just happens to be what I see. Diabetes, diabetes. So many people have diabetes, and then they end up with some bleeding in their eyes. Now, that being said, it's not as common to see extremely horrible diabetic retinopathy, but I feel like lately I'm seeing a lot more than I did. I feel like it went down for a while, and now I'm seeing it again. So, but dry eyes is rampant. And again, screen time, blue light toxicity, all the things that we're doing to our eyes is just so common for dryness in young people as well. Allergies.
what would be the best solution for dry eyes other than the sun exposure and blocking the blue light? Are there any other tricks that we can use?
Oh, sure. So first, just as far as when we are on a screen, we don't blink that much. The blink rate, we're supposed to blink at least every 10 seconds in order to replenish our tear film. Something as simple as blinking isn't it can help, but it's hard to remember to do that because we're so focused on screens and reading and all of these things that we're not blinking. So we want to be mindful of taking breaks. And everyone has heard of the 20-20 rule, 20 minutes, look
Yeah.
away. But there really is something to taking breaks and looking away and blinking. When we're looking at a screen, it is a little better to be looking down at an angle. It's a little better for the posture. We want to be careful
Oh,
about forward head posture. We want to make sure that our lymph is flowing. Anything that creates stagnation around the eyes contributes to dry eyes. There could be toxins, hormones. There are some products that are a little more natural, but we want to make sure we're staying hydrated. Our body does make its own water with our mitochondria, but we also want to make sure we're drinking enough healthy water that we can absorb. So a
mhm.
lot of times when I tell people you might be dehydrated, like, oh, I drink water all day long. I'm like, oh, that's not what I mean exactly. Like you can drink a ton of water, but if you're not drinking water that has any minerals or any electrolytes or salt or anything in it, then you can be diluting your minerals. So I always say like it's nice to have water like spring water has natural minerals in it. I
Yeah.
like to put a little bit of Soleil water, which is like a salty water, especially in the morning to rehydrate. I like minerals, like bean minerals are really nice, things like that that have a little bit of minerals throughout the day. And then sipping it throughout the day is it's easier than just chugging water. Sometimes we don't absorb it as much. I think it's super important to hydrate first thing in the morning. Structuring the water is also another way. And I know sometimes I say that, and I know my family thinks I'm a little nutty when I started talking about structuring water, but but
No, it's
when you know about, yeah.
yeah,
So when
yes, of course.
structuring it, it's more natural, we absorb
Yeah.
it better. So all of those ways to stay hydrated is really important. Reducing toxins. Toxins play a huge role in dry eyes. The air that we breathe, having, filter in the room, air purifiers, anything that can reduce toxins. Products are a big problem. People use
mhm.
ridiculous things on their face and on their body, and that's also another contributor. Histamine is another trigger, and that can come from being, blue light toxic, from having inflammation, so many different things. So there's a lot of different factors, and we just want to, anything that makes the body feel better typically makes the eyes feel better.
Yeah.
Medications, there's a lot of side effects for
Yeah.
medications as well for dry eyes. So there's things like that. Make sure if you're in the car, you don't have the air blowing in your face. You don't want all of that evaporation. Just common sense things, things like that. Castor oil is a really nice
I was just gonna ask you about castor oil because castor oil can be quite hydrating. I love it.
yeah, it's
Any
great. And
any other supplements that you would recommend for the eyes?
so Castor oil. I think if we are using any drops, it has to be preservative-free tiers to be really
Yeah.
careful about using anything or that has preservatives in it.
Yeah.
Supplements, lactoferrin or colostrum is actually lactoferrin is something that's been found in the tear film to be very helpful. So sometimes people will have colostrum, which might be helpful, things like that. I don't really like to recommend supplements too much, but getting foods that have natural vitamin A, like liver, things like that. Vitamin A is an important component
Yeah.
for dry eyes. Fish from healthy sources of actual fish, like DHA, is also very anti-inflammatory, things like that. And then there's other things we can use. A lot of people have clogged glands on their eyelids, which are very uncomfortable. And those oil glands, again, get clogged for so many reasons, a lot of it being circadian, but other reasons as well. And that people will, years ago, we used to tell people to clean their eyelids with baby shampoo, which is so
I
old,
remember that.
outdated,
Yes.
right? Outdated.
Yeah.
It's better to use something like a hypochlorous acid spray, which is a very natural way to just clean the lids. Sometimes there's some products that have okra gel, which is
Okay.
actually pretty helpful for mucin because part of the tear film has a little bit of mucus in there. So there's other things. There are tea tree oils, sometimes essential oils, but you can't put tea tree oil directly on the eye. We have to be careful, but there are some essential oils that can be useful. Some people use homeopathy, which again, I don't really delve into homeopathy too much, but I know a lot of people do well with some. They used to have homeopathic drops, but they took them off the market.
Oh,
Those are
that's too
very
bad.
right.
Yeah,
So things
that's
like
happening
that.
with all the homeopathic supplements now and other supplements as well. It's terrible. No, I do like castor oil. I use it regular and it's really great for growing longer eyelashes and for
Mhm.
eyebrows as well. And you can just rub it right into your, it's good for wrinkles and it also helps your eyesight. So it's wonderful.
It improves lymph flow as well. So some people have found, and again, this may be more anecdotal, but they found that even early cataracts sometimes because there's stagnation for lymph can actually help with floaters. Some people have said that castor oil has helped them with floaters. That's interesting. I don't know that I've seen that directly, but definitely a lot of anecdotal. Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
What
Mhm.
about mites? I've heard about we can have mites between the eyelashes. What's going on? That sounds a little bit
I
creepy.
know it's a little cringy.
Yeah.
Demodex mites. So
Yes.
most people, it's part. Some people, a lot of us have mites in our skin, but
Yes.
if they grow too much, they actually live in our hair follicles. So at night is when they're most active. They can live inside the hair follicles of the eyelashes. And when they multiply, they excrete waste products. And those waste products will form a collar of dandruff around the base of the eyelashes. So it's very easy to spot. And it's itchy, it's uncomfortable, it contributes to a lot of symptoms. And you can do all the lid scrapes, you can keep washing the eyes and washing the eyes. It's nothing, it doesn't really help unless you use something like a tea tree oil based cleanser, or again, okra gel has been found to help with Demodex. There is a medication that just came out that actually is pretty useful. It actually works quite well. I'm not really one for,
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals too much, but this one actually does work well. But Demodex is an issue. Absolutely.
And that can also cause dry eyes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. hmm It's all linked. Dry eyes, we need three components to the tear film for eyes not to be dry. So we have the oil layer, which the glands secrete. We have a water layer, which is from our lacrimal glands. So if we're stressed out, we're not going to release water. And then we have a layer that creates mucin or mucus so that the tears attach to the cornea and stay on our eye. So we need all of those layers to be intact. So it's a lot. So common. Contacts are another thing that creates dry eyes very commonly as well. And a lot of people wear contacts, and that's a whole other.
What happens when you're wearing contacts or if you need prescription glasses and you're outdoors? Is that also blocking the sunlight?
A lot of contacts will block ultraviolet light, so then you are blocking ultraviolet.
Hmm.
If you are wearing a contact that does allow UVs to pass through, it's a little bit better. But when you're wearing a contact all the time, you're still changing the way light is getting into the eyes in a subtle way because you're reducing a little bit of the oxygen, you're changing the tear film layer. It's always better if we can to have naked eyes if we're really trying to get those circadian signals, or just to reduce the amount of time we wear contacts. I think most of the problems with contacts comes in when people wear them from the second they wake up until they go to bed. They don't ever give their eyes a break. The body, you can see, it's pretty obvious in the eyes what's happening because you start to see blood vessels forming, growing into the eye, into the cornea, because the body's starving for oxygen. And the body's always trying to help itself. So what happens when we start seeing blood vessels growing into the cornea, it's just a sign that there's a lack of oxygen. And we don't want blood vessels in the cornea because we see because there's no blood vessels in the cornea. So that's a sign that people really are overdoing it with their contacts. And that's a problem.
But are there not contacts that don't block the UV light?
There are contacts that don't block UV light. Most of them do, but I actually have a whole list. There's a few of them that don't. Daly's Total One is a pretty common brand. It's actually one of the better daily lenses out there. Daly's Total One, but only if you don't have an astigmatism. If you have an astigmatism, the Daly's Total One for astigmatism blocks UV, but the regular ones do not. And the ones for multifocal, so those are the ones if you also need for reading, they do not block UV. Every other daily pretty much blocks UV. There are some other ones that are still available, but we cannot get trials of those lenses anymore. So if you were to go to an eye doctor and you need a prescription for a contact, we have to see how it fits on the eye. You can't just order any contact you want because it's a medical device on the eye. And every contact will fit differently. The materials are different. So a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, I'm just going to order any contact, but we really do have to know that it fits well. That's important. It's literally a piece of plastic on your eye. It has to be fit. If we can't get trials for those lenses, I can't give you a prescription for it. I have to see it on the eye. So there's like Aqua Comfort Dailies is still available. You can still get it, but you can't be fit for them. So, people who are still wearing them, I'll continue, but I can't get a trial to see how it fits. So it's interesting. And that's how the company's getting, when they start discontinuing trials, it means the company is getting ready to get rid of those lenses and they're not going to make them for much longer because they keep improving their technology. And yes, the technology has gotten better as far as oxygen and comfort, but the newer technology, all of it blocks UV for the most part. It's very rare for a company to make a new lens that does not block UV. There are some monthly lenses like Biofinity, Ultra, and Air Optics Hydroglide that do not block UV as well. But again, Air Optics Hydroglide, it's hard to get trials for those. And I really like that lens, but it's hard. It's getting harder to get trials. So I have a feeling that one is being phased out as well. So there's not too many left.
If somebody had to choose between glasses or contact lenses, which would you prefer to prescribe to someone?
If it were me for my own eyes, I would choose glasses because glasses, you can just pull them down.
Yeah.
It's very easy. You're giving your eyes a break. Contacts. And again, I get that some people people love them, especially if you have a really high prescription. It is optically more comfortable to see in a contact lens than it is to see in glasses
Oh,
if
it
you
is.
have a high prescription because
Yeah.
glasses it's an invisible image. It's changing the size of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Especially if you've ever seen somebody whose eyes look very small when they put glasses on because they have a really thick prescription.
Yeah.
Their images are smaller. Like it's an imaginary image in a way that they're looking at. But if you put contact lenses, because they're on the eye, everything looks the way it's supposed to. And you're not blocked by the side of the glasses. Like your whole field of vision opens. So it is more comfortable to wear a contact lens visually for a lot of people. And the opposite also, if you're very farsighted. So, I get it, but it's safer in a sense if we're really looking at a safety standpoint and how the eyes are working, then glasses really are safer. But contacts, as long as you don't overdo it, contacts are fine. Some people love them and do fine, but many people are fine. It's just when they overdo it. I think that's where there's a problem.
Like with everything, right?
Yeah.
What's your view on laser surgery?
People have done beautifully with laser, and I don't want to make it sound like if anyone got it that they're doomed, because I feel like I get that a lot. People are sending me messages saying, "Oh no, I got laser. What do I do?" It's
Yeah.
okay. But I will say there's a couple of things we just have to be aware of is that when you get laser surgery, it's cutting the cornea, right? So they're making a little cut, a flap, and then they're shaving down the cornea to change the shape and then putting that flap back on so that it kind of seals, but it's cut the corneal nerves. It's cutting the nerve tissue. So your brain is not getting the message to water because we need those nerves to detect when we need to secrete water from our lacrimal glands.
Yeah.
So the dry eyes are an automatic side effect. And yes, those nerves grow back. They do. Do they grow back fully? Not always. Do people sometimes have dry eyes for a very long time, sometimes years later? Yes, absolutely. Not everybody. The other thing that happens is that what a lot of people will come in say they're 38. I don't know, I'm using that age because 40 is when some people start to need reading glasses.
Yeah.
And they want LASIK at age 38. And I say no. Because our eyes change. And even if you're nearsighted, even if you didn't do the circadian stuff, the myopia gets better over time. And I like to say it gets better. What's really happening is that our reading is getting worse and there's a shift. So if you're nearsighted, say you're a -2, by the time you approach 40, maybe you're a -175, then you're going to go down to a 150. You're going to slowly get a little bit better because that lens is getting thicker and thicker inside of our eye, and it's becoming less elastic, and it's shifting the prescription into being more farsighted. So if you were to get LASIK based on a prescription that you have when you're 35, in 5 years, you're going to be farsighted. And you're not going to realize how annoying that is because spent your life being nearsighted, and all of a sudden you're going to need reading glasses real fast. You're going to need it for everything here and closer, really fast. And that's frustrating. And the other thing is UVA. We have UVA neuropsin receptors in the retina, but they also found that they're in our cornea as well. And UVA, again, is very important for our circadian rhythm for different aspects of our bodies, of how we function. We need those signals. Again, UVA is important for so many different signaling aspects of the body. So if UVA is on the cornea, and I don't know if this is 100% happening, but there's a potential that the laser is going to damage those UVA receptors, and that changes the way we process light. So there are people who have been depressed after LASIK, or who there's actually, I think, a documentary about it where people have really interesting mood changes after LASIK because of the changes in how we're processing light, because it's not all about seeing, it's also about how the body, our eyes are the window to the entire body. So we do have to keep that in mind. So that's kind of where I'm at with LASIK. So I make sure everybody understands that. And then
Yeah,
if you did get LASIK, we have to be really careful, even more so about that blue light, I think, because
yeah.
now your cornea is thinner. So it's thinner than it was. You might be more susceptible to damage. So just want to really understand all of those aspects before you make that decision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I
Mm.
remember Dr. Jack Cruz was talking about it years ago, and he was saying he was seeing all kinds of new diseases in people as a consequence of, LASIK surgery that they were having on their eyes. And I mean, if
Yeah.
it disrupts our circadian rhythm to that point where you're not able to absorb the light, it can definitely cause some issues.
Yeah, I mean, I had one patient, and I don't know, I don't want to make this is just something that I observed. I don't know if it's a true connection, but I did
Yeah.
my one patient who had melanoma in the eye and the iris, right behind the iris, actually, had LASIK. I don't know if that was, that's just one example. I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but it was interesting. 40-year-old woman had
Wow.
melanoma about a year, maybe 2 years after LASIK, on the computer
Wow.
all day, things like that. So
Well,
I don't know.
you mentioned dopamine, and that's my field because I'm a psychiatrist, and I'm just wondering, what do you notice people who have these issues that you see more depression when they've had things like LASIK, or maybe I don't even know, maybe perhaps cataract surgery or anything else? Does it affect the dopamine, and does that then create more depression?
So I have been paying a little more attention to that. And I feel like, when I ask people, when you get people's history, there are a lot of times in the history of things happening is I had cataract surgery, and it's not, not a direct correlation, but I do notice little things like that. I always try to pay attention to what triggers, a lot of health changes occur. And I always say, what happened? What happened before that, and cataract surgery, can be one of those things, and it could just be a coincidence, but I do notice that LASIK. I have a handful of patients who are very, very regretful. They regret getting it for those reasons. Again, tons of people are fine. So many people are fine. I've been in practice for over 20 years, and they're fine. So I don't want people to think that they're doomed or that they made the wrong decision. But I do have, I really do have a handful of patients who have mood changes, depression, things like that, who have and realize that it was that they actually feel it. It's not me telling them. It was, after LASIK, I felt this. Not too many people, because most people don't make that connection. But I do have a handful.
I remember in one of your podcasts, I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was you talking about that you had a patient who was in her 80s and she was able to see, like she was able to read perfectly without glasses.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
every now and then we get those people, and I'm like, what do you do? What's your life like? And it's people who have very low stress, I will say. That's a big thing.
yeah.
Just have a lifestyle where they're just outdoors, they're gardening, they're doing all these things, and they're not they're not on screens, they just have a really full life, not a modern life, not our modern world. They didn't succumb to all of our modern pleasures, I guess. And they just have this beautiful life and their eyes are great. And it just always amazes me. And a lot of times I'll have couples, this has happened quite a few times where I have, a husband and a wife come in, and the husband's an outdoor worker, whether it be construction or he's just, someone who works outside all day. And then the wife is someone who's, in front of a screen wearing sunglasses, never goes outside. The
Yeah.
wife will have fibromyalgia, diabetes, all the things, all the medications, depression, anxiety, everything with the medications. And the husband's just this happy-go-lucky guy. He's like, I'm outside all day. I don't wear my sunglasses. And the difference in their eyes is staggering. Like it's amazing. Where you think it should be the opposite. Oh, I'm outside all day. I'm not wearing my sunglasses, but he's outside all day, and it's really interesting. I like when I see that because that especially now because then I can point it out. Not in
Yeah,
a nice way, but it just
learning
helps.
about quantum biology just changes everything. You never look at people or anything the same way again, right?
Absolutely.
No, it's really amazing. So then obviously it's not a given that our eyesight needs to progressively get worse just because we're aging.
I mean, right. I see people who are fine. I think depends on our lifestyle. It's not a given. I mean, I think it is I think if you're 80 and you don't have any lens changes, that is tough. I mean, I think with anything, it is a little harder as we get older
Yeah.
to, reverse it or keep it under control. But I think, yeah, I don't think it has to be. I don't. Just like anything else. I mean, you have a 70-year-old who can walk and still run, and then you have a 70-year-old who can't get out, who can't stand up out of a chair. There's so many. So the same thing with the eyes. I feel like if we have a good quantum lifestyle, but again, there's so many other factors as well, not just light, but that's the foundation. If we have
Yeah.
that good foundation and then we build upon that, I think it's a good chance that we can really age gracefully in a way that we don't have to, start getting injections like everybody has for
Yeah.
macular degeneration and all those other things.
And when you look at it like from a holistic point of view, like how you mentioned this couple, so it really is your eyes, like if you have good eye health, then chances are then your body is also healthy and vice versa. Would that be correct?
I think it is correct. I mean, I know your eyes are the first place where things can happen. So if your eyes are telling your entire body what time it is, if it's brain tissue. So our eyes are brain tissue, our eyes are vascular tissue, and our eyes are extensions of the skin. So when things start happening to that brain tissue, say glaucoma, to the blood vessels of diabetes or just the macular starts losing its ability to replenish those photoreceptors and what's happening in the rest of the body. There's a lot of links between macular degeneration and cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer,
Mm.
things like that, brain diseases, because it is the beginning. It's the beginning of the body in a way. There's also vice versa. If you have diabetes, you can have issues in the retina as well. But yeah, absolutely. I think that is true.
So that brings me to an interesting question I've had since I've learned about quantum biology and eyes is what about people who are blind? Like, do they get any kind of normal signaling from the sun, and like what happens to them in
So I
terms
guess
of their health?
it depends on why they're blind. I guess if
Hmm.
it's complete blindness where they're not getting a nerve signal, then the
Yes.
melanopsin cells, there's no way the melanopsin cells from the eye are making it to the brain because there's no conduction.
Mhm.
But we also have melanopsin in our skin
Yes.
as well. And we do have other signals. So light is the foundation, but there are other time signals like food and temperature, and then melanopsin is on our skin. So I'm wondering if their skin takes over. But they're not blind because of complete, lack of nerve transmission, then the melanopsin receptors might still be intact. You can have, you can possibly be blind for different reasons and still have those melanopsin cells that are still firing to the brain.
And just for the people who are not familiar with melanopsin, can you just give us
Oh, sure, of course.
a
So,
definition of what it is and what they
yeah,
do?
yes. So we've all heard of our rods and our cones, and that's what helps us see. So our cones is what we use during the day. It's our color vision, and those are
Mhm.
concentrated right in the center, so it gives us our detailed vision during the day. And our rods we associate with night vision. So when things are dark, we can see at night. We can adapt to night vision. We also have melanopsin, so they're a third kind of photoreceptor, but these photoreceptors are not taking in light so we can see, they're taking in wavelengths of blue light. and they're not found in the same place as the rods and the cones. They're found with the ganglion cells. The ganglion cells is the layer of the retina that has our nerve cells. So in specific ganglion cells, we have these melanopsin photoreceptors, and they're wired a little differently. They have a slightly different structure, and they absorb light in the wavelength around 480 nanometers of blue light. And there is a range, but when we get those signals are traveling through, from the retina, through the optic nerve, right to the clock in our brain. We have a master clock right behind the eyes called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it's connected by melanopsin. So melanopsin are our blue light time receptors in the eye, and they're not all over the place. They're mostly in the bottom of our retina, like kind of inferior nasal by our nose, because sunlight comes from above. So that's kind of the way we're designed, for the sun to hit us just in a natural way. It's like this beautiful, perfect design. And there's different subtypes of melanopsin. I can get into all that as well. But basically, they're just blue light receptors in the eye.
Very
That's how.
interesting. I mean, it's so complex, but we're designed so perfectly, and we are designed so perfectly to be in tune with nature, with the sun, with our environment, and then we come and we mess everything up with the indoor lighting, with the devices, with everything else, with the sunglasses. Humans are insane. Um, Dr. Valerie, what about food? Can food affect our eye health?
Yeah, so just like food affects the body, it can absolutely affect our eye health. So food is interesting because whatever food we eat, it's giving our body a message of what season we're in and what time of day, what time of year it is. It's so interesting. So I love when I learned this, I thought it was so amazing and it makes sense, right? But when food is growing, it's growing because of light, right? So it's absorbing light signals from the sun.
Yes.
So if we have tropical food, we have a pineapple that's growing in the tropics, it's growing under this intense sun signal, beautiful and full of sugar, full of all this, whatever. It's a pineapple. We know what pineapples are.
Yes.
And then when we eat that pineapple, what we're doing is reversing it. We're gathering those. So let me backtrack for a second. Everything is about electrons in our body, right? So electrons is what it collects light. Light can interact with our body through electrons, and electrons is our electricity in the body. It's how we work. So the more electrons we have, the better. Electrons go through our energy, our mitochondrial cells so we need that. So when we're eating food, we're just breaking down food into electrons so that those electrons can travel through our energy, through our mitochondrial cycles or cells, so that we're making water and energy for the body. But when we break down electrons, we're basically breaking it down into light. So if you're eating a pineapple and we're breaking down those electrons are full of the same light like that tropical light. So those signals are going to tell our body that we're eating tropical food, and the body will say, okay, I guess we should be in the tropics. And when, in summertime or in higher UV environments, our metabolism does different things. So we do different things in a seasonal way. So if we're eating foods that grow near us in the season that we're in, then it makes sense. And our body, inflammation goes down because it all makes sense. Everything is what we're supposed to be doing. But if we're, say, in New York and we're eating a pineapple in the winter, there's a mismatch. And that mismatch, because our body thinks it's tropical and we're in the winter, we're supposed to be healing and restoring the body in the winter, but now we have these signals of things that don't make sense. It's going to create inflammation, and it can damage our mitochondria, and that's going to damage our eyes. So everything is linked. So we want to make sure that the food that we're eating makes sense for our environment, but also timing makes sense as well, because if we're, from a circadian standpoint, our digestive enzymes go down at night. We're not really meant to eat when the sun goes down, which is why we can get heartburn if we eat too late. So if we're eating things that are really late at night, that's also a mismatch for the body. It can raise our blood sugar more. Maybe we can't handle that as well as we can in the middle of the day, or when the sun is up. We can handle stronger signals of food. We can handle more carbs. We can handle different things in a better way. It just makes sense. So if we're eating late at night, if we're eating foods that don't make sense, obviously processed foods, I mean, we know that for sure. I mean, that's an obvious thing. But even healthy foods that we think are healthy may not be healthy for us. So we have to just be careful about that, because it all turns into what makes the most sense with how we live and what kind of signals we're getting from food, from the sun, from our bodies, from everything. So yeah, it can absolutely have an effect on the eyes.
So it's not just as simple as eat more carrots.
Right. No.
That's the typical one, right? For the eyes,
Right.
carrots, high
Yeah,
in vitamin A.
carrots have beta carotene, and some of us can't even make that conversion into vitamin A. So that's kind of a little bit of a myth.
Uh-huh. Can we ask what kind of diet you follow?
I tend to follow more like paleo, I guess,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
like
Almost
whole
everybody in the
food.
quantum biology
Yeah, I don't
world,
do
we're all
well.
kind of
Yeah,
meat-based,
just
right?
paleo. I've tried. I'm not very good with keto. I don't know. I feel like I'm too much of my thyroid tanks, if I
On
don't have
keto.
any carbs and stuff. And I could probably do better with my with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do best with just paleo.
Yeah, so meat, basically a meat-based diet, right? With
Yeah,
some vegetables.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much me as well.
So can we talk a little bit about the interior lighting that we're all subjected to now? They banned incandescent light bulbs quite some time ago, but I understand they're probably the best of a bad bunch, right? Like because you get a fuller spectrum of light from
Yes.
incandescence than you would say from LEDs or fluorescents. Can you
Yes.
just go through the various categories
Mhm.
of indoor lighting and which you would recommend would be the best that most people could access right
Right.
now?
So incandescents have a lot of infrared light, still have a lot of red and infrared that have that heat. So we're getting almost like a sunset or a sunrise signal, which is probably the best kind of lighting we can use. As long as it doesn't flicker, that's a whole different story. Just in general, when we plug things into our electricity, the because of the way it's not a direct current, it's an alternating current. So if we look at that light is actually turning on and off like 100 times a second or whatever the cycles are. And that's very damaging for our eyes. We're not supposed to have this flickering light. But that aside, incandescents are probably the healthiest option because it is more of a sunset. It's a little bit more full spectrum, but it gives us that infrared component. And again, the infrared component is so important for inflammation, for everything. We are lacking. We need as much infrared as we can possibly get. And as soon as they switch to LEDs and fluorescents, it's no longer energy efficient to have any heat. So they took out all of the infrared. And if you look at a spectrum, there's a big spike of blue light, usually around 450, 455 nanometers of blue. And then everything else is almost gone. Not exactly depending on the LED, depending on the fluorescent, but it's just a spike of blue. And that's a high energy signal of blue with no balance. Blue light in itself is not bad for us, but it's always balanced out in the sun.
Yes.
It has the red and the infrared, which is kind of the antidote to that blue light. Blue light's very close to ultraviolet, so it's a very oxidizing signal. So when we are exposed to unbalanced blue light all day, all night, not only is it a 12 o'clock timestamp, it's the same color temperature of the sun as the afternoon. So our brain always thinks it's 12 o'clock. But it's just weird. It has no balance. So it's very oxidizing and very damaging, especially when there's all day and it doesn't change, which is another problem because blue light, we expect it to change. We expect it to be low in the morning, higher in the afternoon, lower at the end of the day, and then gone at night. So any blue light at all at night is enough to turn on those melanopsin receptors again that are supposed to be off. And now the brain thinks it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon all over again at night, and we start the whole process. Well, here's cortisol. Why don't you wake up? Forget melatonin. Melatonin can't be released anymore because of cortisol, and melatonin heals the eyes overnight. It heals everything that we can possibly think of while we're sleeping if we allow melatonin to be released, but we can't do that with any of these artificial lights. So LEDs and fluorescents are really not good for us at all. And they even sell like warmer LEDs. There are some circadian friendly bulbs that are LEDs. There are some brands. I don't know if you wanted me to go into any brands, but
Yes,
I
please, of
actually do
course,
have
absolutely.
I actually in my house right now, I have bulbs in because we have all these stupid hi-hats that have the LEDs in the ceiling that we
Yeah, we
thought
have
were
that too.
thing. Yeah, so now I changed those out. Not all of them yet, but the where in the rooms that I'm in the most, I changed them out. Well, blockbluelight.com has these hi-hats that are circadian friendly, and there's three different levels. So and they turn on with the switch. So when you turn them on first, you get sunset, which is just orange. It's so nice.
Oh, wow.
Turn it on again, and then it turns into full spectrum daylight. And then the third option is sunset, where it's like half blue, half red or orange. So I like those. I feel a
Wow.
little bit better about that. I mean, I think the company's great. I'm sure people who are light experts might say that it's not. I don't know, but I feel better with those.
Yeah.
So again, these full spectrum bulbs. At night, I do also have more red bulbs around the house, or you can use, I don't like candles. Candles are great. Candles are probably the safest thing because it's just infrared. It's just like a nice orange. It doesn't shut down melanopsin at all
Yeah.
or turn on melanopsin. But I don't like candles. I'm afraid of, having candles on at night. So
Yeah.
I do have either amber or reddish bulbs at night, which are again circadian friendly, different companies. I do have from blockbluelight.com, but there's a lot of companies who do make those kind of bulbs. During the day at work, I am exposed to the worst lighting at all. The worst lighting. It's LEDs, it's flickering, it's horrible. So at work, what I'll do is I'll bring near lighting actually from Scott Zimmerman. It has a NIRA, it's near infrared. So
Mhm.
he has a lamp. I got the lamp that has some near infrared in there. So it has
Mhm.
like a little bit more of infrared. Apparently it doesn't flicker. So that's one aspect. There's also a sky portal that I have that I just started using that you can change it throughout the day to make it more blue, more red.
Yeah.
I
I
have a
have
bunch
one of
of
those.
toys. You have that also? Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes.
like that one. There's a bunch of them. I have so many. Then I have red light therapy that I'll use a little bit of red light here and there. I try to get infrared sources. I just bought a ton of infrared incandescent bulbs from Amazon just to stock up. So I
Yeah.
have a bunch of those. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sure I have other things, but yes, anything that's more full spectrum is going to be ideal, and ideally even more so if it doesn't flicker. But
And then on your devices, you mentioned you use Iris or
I
different
have
ways.
Iris.
Yes.
Yeah, Iris on my phone's night shift all the time. And even night shift people say, oh, I put night shift on at 10 o'clock at night. That's
No,
useless.
I have it on all the time. That's why I had to change my blue blockers because my screen is orange, and then I put the orange glasses and I couldn't see you guys
Can't see
anymore.
anything.
But I mean, if you have it on your computer, do you still need the blue blocker glasses? Would you still use them? Or
As
the
long as
yellow
it's
ones should be, because like these ones are yellow. These I can handle. But if
Yeah,
I have
that's
more,
fine. It kind of depends on the other light sources. So if I was at work and I'm not allowed to have anything on the computer. Like the IT department, we can't always download Iris, which is
really?
annoying. Why I have to have yellow and I have to have all the lights. But suppose I had the Iris technology on the computer and I had better lights, then I wouldn't bother with the yellow glasses because I wouldn't
Mhm.
have any. But even if I had the Iris technology on the computer, I still have other lights on that
Oh,
are horrible. So
Yeah.
I would still wear yellow. I wish I had a window. I don't even have a window in my office. There's like no
Oh,
windows. But if there was a window and you physically open that window, then I feel like you're okay.
yeah.
That's even
Yeah.
better.
That's what I do. I mean, we don't use the overhead lights ever, like
Hmm.
pretty much ever, because we have windows everywhere. And then at night we just, we put the red light on or that's it. I mean, there's no and there's enough light coming from outside that you don't need
Hmm.
lights on. But it's very strange if I walk into someone else's house in the evening and it's, dark outside and I walk in and there's all this light and it hurts my eyes because I'm so not used to it. I get ready in the bathroom with red light. So to have this bright light when it's supposed to be dark, it's like how people are with the sunlight when they first go outside without sunglasses. I'm like, no, I can't stand it. So it's amazing how, this harsh indoor lighting can really hurt your eyes once you're not used to it anymore.
Absolutely. The other thing that's interesting is that the light indoors, even though it's a 12 o'clock time, Sam, it's still not bright enough. Like we're still not
Yeah,
getting, so if we're inside all day, we're not really getting the brightness that we need because we
yeah,
actually need brighter or more lux. So
yes.
it's just a complete mismatch. Even though it feels bright and it's hard on our eyes, it's still not bright enough. We're
No, it's
like
not.
living in darkness all day and then we have light at night. It's just a whole
Yeah,
big.
it's all so messed up. But I mean, for
Mhm.
as far as the outdoor lighting, if you just crack a window open or open a door, that's enough to get the outdoor lux into the house, right?
I think there's more lux as you get closer to an open window. I think as you move
Uh-huh.
away from the window, there's not as much lux.
Okay.
But, open window is always going to be better than a closed window. So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely feel that. Dr.
mhm.
Lucille, did you have any other more questions?
no, I mean, that's a lot to chew on right there.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll wake up at 3 a.m. with lots of questions.
Dr. Valerie, we absolutely love chatting with you, and you are just so delightful and an amazing source of
Mhm.
information. Please tell our followers where they can find you, where they can find more information. We love your Instagram page, so we recommend for everyone to follow your Instagram page.
Thank you. Yeah, so far I'm on Instagram the most. I would say Quantum Eye Doc on Instagram. I'm on YouTube to be better at keeping that updated. I'm almost ready to publish my website. I have a couple of things I'm working on, but right now I would say Instagram is probably the best place because you can kind of sign up for my email and then get more information that way. But I have so much fun on Instagram. It's like a little it's very creative. I have fun like making posts.
You have great posts. You do them yourself? Those are
For the
wonderful.
most part. I mean, I
Wow.
have a ton of apps that I use to help
Well
me out.
done.
And stuff. It's
Well
just
done.
fun. It's fun to
Yeah.
do.
So
Yeah.
at Quantum Eye Doc, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
correct. Okay, we'll make sure we link everything below so people can easily find you. And thank you
you.
so much. We really loved having you here with us.
Fun. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everyone. See you in the next one.
Thank you for tuning into the Rewilded Human podcast. We hope you're leaving with insights to reconnect with your natural, vibrant self. Remember, the information shared here is for educational and inspirational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for any personal health concerns. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. We'll see you next time, ready to dive even deeper. Stay wild, stay true, and stay tuned.